but I think the downside risk for gold is, in the order of 5% from these levels. But the upside risk, if and when it does rally in a typical kind of late summer rally, we should see about a 10% or more rally in the metal. And if that happens, then these junior mining stocks can offer, 100% or more upside potential.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Mining Stock Education expert interview. I'm Bill Powers, your host. Thanks for joining me. We're here in the summer doldrums if you're a restock investor or a precious metals investor. Today, as I speak, gold and silver have both hit 52-week bottoms. Today's topic is regarding gold, silver, and the resource markets. And I have joining me on the line today Brien Lundin, the editor of Gold Newsletter and the CEO of the New Orleans Investment Conference. Brien, thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Great to be with you, Bill.
Brien, you lay out a very clear and cogent case for the bullish macro narrative for gold. I was at the Sprott Conference a couple weeks ago, and I attended the Maple Gold Mines luncheon where you presented the bullish case, long-term bullish case for gold. But here we are, gold's hitting 52-week lows. When you're a precious metals or a resource investor, there's a lot of volatility and your emotions can get the best of you. What would you like to share with listeners that are tracking and invested in the gold market, and where do you see gold going in the short term and also medium term?
Well, I still believe that gold is in a bottoming process right here, and there is some downside risk, but it always seems like gold hits the support levels that other assets would bounce off of, and then breaks through those support levels. It just seems like in kind of a sadistic manner, gold just wants to give us another twist of the knife and drop a little bit further just to shake out the last of the weak hands or even some of the strong hands. And I think that's what it's doing right now. It's in a bottoming process. It's kind of a typical seasonal summertime bottoming process or correction. It may be a bit more than that, but I think the downside risk for gold is, in the order of 5% from these levels. But the upside risk, if and when it does rally in a typical kind of late summer rally, we should see about a 10% or more rally in the metal. And if that happens, then these junior mining stocks can offer, 100% or more upside potential. So if investors have the courage and the cash to buy some of the bargains that are lying around right now, I think the upside potential is really extraordinary.
What are your comments on gold's relationship to the U.S. dollar at the moment, and what do you see happening with the U.S. dollar for the second half of this year?
Well, 95 has been the key level on the dollar index, and it's just failed to break through that ceiling over and over again. Now, as we speak today, it's peaked its head over that 95 level by a few basis, by about 0.5% or so. So it remains to be seen whether it's going to turn back down over the next day or two, or whether it will decisively and finally break through that resistance. The dollar and gold have been, there's a natural inverse relationship between the two. It doesn't always work. Sometimes they actually go up or fall together. But over the last couple of years or so, that inverse relationship has been very strong and very close. So in the short term, you want to really look at the dollar to see where gold's going. And, at that Sprott Conference, this is one of the things that I was telling people is as they looked around and walked the streets of Vancouver and everybody's down in the dumps and worried about how bad sentiment is in the junior mining share market, really that market is driven by gold and the dollar and much larger asset classes and much larger issues. And those asset classes really don't care what people are thinking in the junior mining share market. And once we see a significant downtrend in the dollar, and once we see a nice uptrend in gold, then these junior stock markets and all the other associated markets are going to turn on a dime, and you'll get whiplash. They'll reverse course so quickly and head upward. So it really is, to my mind, if you're invested in the junior mining stocks, you need to look at where gold's going. And to look where gold's going, to see where it's going, need to look at where the dollar is going.
As you analyze the most recent commitment of traders report on gold and silver, what are you seeing and what's its significance?
Well, you're seeing record net short positions for the longs, for the speculative, the large speculators, and so they're having record net short positions. They've never had any. They've never been more short than they are right now. Now, if you look back and see the last time they were anywhere near these levels on a net short position, it was in January of 2016. As we know, that was right before gold rose 19%, and many of these junior mining stocks went up 3, 4, 5 times over during that the first half of that year. Hopefully, we're going to see the exact same or closely similar type of performance in gold and the mining shares from this level. That really does indicate, though, that as you know, these speculative longs typically get the direction of the market wrong. It's the commercials that get it right, and when the speculators get really largely on one side of the boat, ready to tip over, that's when we see these big market turns, and that's precisely where we are right now.
Well, we were both at the Sprott Conference 2 weeks ago. As you went from booth to booth and interacted with speakers and attendees, what are some of the key takeaways from that conference for you?
Well, that's an event very similar to my conference here in New Orleans. That's an event where you get really smart people, smart attendees, people who have been through a few cycles, and even the company representatives, company management teams have been through a few cycles, and it's more of a sophisticated crowd. They've seen this before. The attendees, I thought, weren't really shaken by where the market has been over the last few weeks and few months. They were more so looking for opportunities and fairly confident that we were going to see a turnaround. And I agree with them. I'm totally on board with that view and have been expressing it for some time now. So I didn't see the kind of depressing atmosphere that you might have at some of the other shows or some of the free conferences.
Rick Rule and Robert Friedland at that conference both told listeners that we should expect a lot of M&A in the next 2 years, and for savvy investors, there's a lot of money to be made. What are your thoughts on M&A in the mining industry in the next 2 years, and where can we find the best opportunities?
I absolutely agree with that. I think we're going to see that. We've seen that the majors have not spent money on exploration over the last 5 to 7 years, and not much money on exploration. They have not refilled the pipeline of gold reserves, and they're going to be desperately looking to rebuild their reserves over the next few years, especially if the market improves, the metals market improves as we expect. So they're going to look at companies that have large-scale proven resources, hopefully or ideally with some economics attached to them. And there's about 4 or 5 or 6 companies that are near the top of that list right now as potential takeover targets. Those are the companies that investors need to focus on. And also because at the bottom of a seasonal bottom like we're seeing now, at the bottom of a correction in the market, those companies are selling at fire sale prices. They're selling for pennies on the dollar of where they would be and will be once gold really turns around. They're the earliest and quickest movers when gold begins to rally again, and I think that's a prime area where investors need to focus their buying right now.
We saw Coeur Mining today, as we speak, acquire Northern Empire Resources, and as I look at the U.S. ticker symbol for Northern Empire, it only went up 12.5% today on the news of the takeover. From the perspective of a junior mining investor, we often buy these companies because we're thinking 5, 10 baggers. Should an investor get excited about a takeover where once the takeover is announced, the stock only goes up 12.5%?
Yes, I do. I think in particular in this case, Northern Empire was a company that I think Gold Newsletter was one of the first to recommend. And so when it got taken out today, or at the projected share price, it was about a 70% gain for our readers. So that's pretty good in a market that is not very good at all, and in fact is one of the worst we've seen in recent years. I think that Northern Empire is a bit of a special case because it's been widely followed. It's done a great job. It's in Nevada. So its share price has actually strengthened over the past few weeks a good bit. In fact, they did not show up at the Sprott Conference a couple of weeks ago, despite the fact that they had spent a lot of money on luncheon presentation, et cetera. They were no-shows. And you probably know that's usually not a good sign for a company to be a no-show at an investment event. But in this case, in Northern Empire's case, I think it was a sign that they didn't want to expose themselves to having to answer questions or say anything. And to me, it was a sign that there was an impending deal, and I alerted my readers to that fact. But I think a lot of that speculation was already in the price, so it only went up about 12 or 13%. Also, it was a bad day in the market generally. Gold was down a good bit. Its losses accelerated during the day, and Coeur itself was off about 4.5% today. So that in effect lowered the buyout price for Northern Empire as the day wore on.
So if someone's looking to invest in the junior resource market now, it's August 2nd as we speak, what would be some of the greatest risks that they should avoid?
Well, the risk generally right now is that we're going to see gold dip below $1,200 and then perhaps lose another $20 or so in a kind of a cascade of selling. I think that's a possibility. Given where we are now, given the fact that there's news coming out on the economy over the next few days, et cetera. So that's the primary risk. I think, though, when you look at the levels of the market, a lot of the risk has been wrung out of the junior mining share market. If you focus on companies that have proven resources, that have obvious resources, good resources, gold and silver primarily, hopefully with economics attached, ideally with economics attached to them. A lot of the risk has been wrung out of these markets. And you have to look at how long of a trade or an investment are you looking at. If you're looking at a few weeks to a month or so, you may have some significant downside risk if you buy at these levels. But if you're looking longer term over the next year or two, buying some of these companies at these levels is something that is very likely to pay off very handsomely over the next year or so.
Yeah, and if I could just chime in, don't invest in a pre-revenue junior miner that needs cash within the next few months, because this would not be a good time to raise money. Moving on to gold-backed cryptocurrencies, what are your thoughts about gold-backed cryptos?
I love the concept. I think that the key is going to be implementation, as with every great idea. But I think that's the solution here. I think putting something real behind a cryptocurrency will finally, it'll solve the weaknesses of crypto right now, because you have a real asset backing it. It also makes it harder to steal because there's a record that you owned it that's forever enshrined, and that if somebody steals your cryptocurrency, if they steal a Bitcoin, well, who knows what that Bitcoin is. But if they try to steal a gold-backed crypto, it's traced back to that percentage of that bar, or however that particular cryptocurrency is functioning. But you're able to trace it back to an actual real asset, and you're able to trace it back to the previous owner. So I think that'll solve part of it. I think the attraction of having a real asset that's been really the original cryptocurrency for all of human history will give people a lot more confidence in investing in the area and using it as a means of savings. The key again will be what will the dominant player emerge, which will be the dominant player to emerge, because that's where you'll have the liquidity and greater use, unless there's some type of a universal standard developed. So it's nascent and it's going to be developing. I think it is the ultimate solution. But again, it's all going to be in the implementation.
Yeah, and I think two of the greatest counterparty risks for gold-backed cryptos is the integrity of the trustees or the people running the company, and also where the gold is stored, where it's vaulted. Because gold in your own possession, that is the safest way. You remove the counterparty risk, except there is theft possibility. But
Yeah.
You really got to judge, in my opinion, the integrity of the people running that gold-backed crypto.
You really do. And what I tell people is, I have some very good friends in the industry and people I trust in storage, people I trust selling the bullion. But I tell people, don't ever put all of your eggs in one basket. You can never absolutely guarantee against some exogenous event or look in the hearts of men, or even to know what staff people may do. So don't put all the eggs in one basket. Spread your holdings among, if you're doing storage, spread them among a number of services, both foreign and domestic, and have some physically available. Have some that are some physical metals that's immediately accessible and not in a bank safe deposit box either, but have it somewhere where you can get to it in a pinch, and spread it around. That's the only way to really mitigate all of the risk out there, is to dilute it and diversify it.
Before we fully leave the topic of blockchain, any thoughts on the usefulness of blockchain in society, and any thoughts on investing in blockchain-related companies?
Well, I do know that there's a lot of smart people that say this technology will be transformational and change the way a lot of things are going. My concerns with blockchain are how it will scale. I know that you can fork the various currencies, but I think that as each transaction has to go to be recorded on every other holder over time, you're going to get scaling problems. And so I think it's probably going to be a very important technology. Like most things, I don't think it's going to be nearly as important or transformational as some of its evangelists may say. I really can't recommend which blockchain companies to invest in, frankly, because I'm not an expert in that area and don't follow many that closely. But I would, as of all things, I would say buyer beware and do your homework.
You're the CEO of the New Orleans Investment Conference. So for the 2018 conference, this will be Thursday, November 1st through Sunday, November 4th. Can you give us a rundown of what we can expect in terms of the agenda and speakers?
Absolutely. Simply put, the best of the best. We work our way from geopolitics into economics and downward into the various investment sectors. And of course, we have a long-standing legacy as being the place to go to learn about metals and mining and the latest opportunities thereof. This year, we're featuring Robert Kiyosaki, Mark Stein, Jonah Goldberg, James Grant, Doug Casey, Rick Rule, Peter Schiff, Dennis Gartman, Guy Adami. We have panels featuring these and more experts on the economy, precious metals, mining stocks, global investing. We're also going to have a special retrospective panel on Charles Krauthammer this year with some of the people who have known him well over the years, including his personal assistant, and review his impact on the New Orleans conference. He was a very good friend of the conference and came every year for about 5 years. And, it's the place to mingle with some of the smartest, most sophisticated, and successful individual investors you're going to find anywhere. I tell attendees every year that, yes, you're going to get some great advice and some great tips from the stage of the conference, but look around you at the people sitting to your left and right. Make a point of trying to meet people and mingle with them, and during our many social events and presentations during the conference, share ideas, because these are really some of the smartest people you'll find anywhere, and you can fill a notebook full of notes just from talking to them, and it's the place to go in uncertain markets. It's proven that over four and a half decades. It really performs well when times are uncertain, and that's precisely the kinds of times we're in right now.
And that conference, again, is going to be November 1st through 4th in, of course, New Orleans. I'll put a link in the show notes below if you'd like to click on that and learn more. You can follow Brien on Twitter at Brien_Lundin. That's BRIEN_LUND as in dog, IN. Brien, any concluding thoughts in light of what we've spoken about today?
Yes, I guess it's the thing I can tell people, the most important thing is to keep your wits about you. If you're invested in the sector, read everything, learn everything, go to conferences, talk to people who have been in the sector for a long time, talk to company management teams, educate yourself because there are a lot of nuances to this, and steel yourself for times like this. It's a cyclical sector. And when the market's down like it is now, a lot of people run for the hills, but the smart people start buying and finding opportunities. And just keep your eye on the big picture because the big picture argues for much higher gold and silver prices over the longer term.
Well said. Brien, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
The Resource Insider Investment Service provides independent research and access to exclusive investment opportunities in the mining and metal space. See the link in the show notes below to learn more and use discount code MSE when you sign up for a 15% discount. And make sure you also download the free Resource Insider ebook by clicking on the link in the show notes below. Thank you for listening to this Mining Stock Education podcast. Please subscribe and share with like-minded investors. Visit us on the web at MiningStockEducation.com for more resources on precious metals and natural resource investing. At our website, you can also sign up for our free newsletter for interview transcripts, stock picks, and more.